We are Jason and Jacqueline, and we are from Valiantis. We are part of the strategic consulting group, and we are here with another tip for strategic consulting, solving the right problem. So today we are going to be talking about our tips on when you go in and start talking to a customer or talking to your board or talking to your executives, how you can really make sure that you're focusing on solving the right problem. So we'll start off talking about the problem, talk about the solution, and then a little bit of follow-up.
Awesome. And, what would a lively discussion be without talking about tax? So I'm going to tell a quick story about a friend of mine. It's actually my cousin, and he is a tax accountant. And years ago, during one of the political cycles, one of the presidential candidates was talking about initiating like a flat tax. And that could spell doom for, an industry like his, which makes its money off having, interpreting complicated tax code. So one day he was kind of concerned about this whole prospect, looked like it was gaining steam. He goes to his boss, the managing partner of the firm, and says, "Hey, I'm concerned about this. What do we do if this thing passes? I mean, we're all out of work." Managing partner didn't look concerned one bit, says, "I'm not worried." My cousin says, "Well, what, you seem so calm. What's the deal? Why are you not worried at all about this? It's our whole business." And he says, "Well, see, I think you view us as accountants, and I've always viewed myself as a problem solver. And the world's got plenty of problems, always will." And my cousin told me about that story because he was like, "Wow, it was just like this sage, sensei talking to me." And when he told me that story, though, I thought, wow, that's profound. I've never gotten that story out of my mind here. So if you do the next click, the question here to everybody watching is, are you a problem solver or are you a developer? How do you view yourself? So there's a mindset to looking for problems. Now it's, do you find the right problems when you go looking? So I'll tell another quick story about an actual engagement that we were in recently. A recent engagement, we're going to go in and do some retooling of ways of working, and and then move everything into the software technical phase at a certain point. And we all had it in our minds, us here at Valiantis and the customer, that we would do value stream mapping. The reason was one of the leads, kind of the project manager on the customer side, was really passionate about value stream mapping and wanted to do a little twist on it. And we had some people that were gearing up for the project that were really good at value stream mapping, and it's, all the rage, and it could be very beneficial. And the more we got into it, and started asking questions, we realized it doesn't make a lot of sense because there's not coherent processes here to map the value through. In fact, this business was a conglomeration, or whatever, a combination of multiple mergers and acquisitions, and some of the businesses that they acquired had really mature processes in certain areas, less mature or non-existent processes in other areas. So it turned out that we just had to go back to something that we generally call just a ways of working engagement, which is, let's start to develop ways of working. In this case, it was around pre-PI planning or PREPI planning, PI planning, execution, and release management. So it's like a safe-ish kind of a ways of working that we, had to actually develop processes around that fit this company. And as you guys know, it's got to fit. It's got to be fit for purpose. So next slide. Just, are we looking for problems that are not there? Where's my super suit? So I've got 6 kids. So next slide after that, Mark Twain quote says, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know that just ain't so." And so in this case, the customer's really happy, and they have developed a new set of processes that go company-wide that really make a lot of sense for them. And if we had gone down the path of value stream management, it would have felt probably good, but it wouldn't have solved the problem. So
Great
Anyway, thanks
example.
for entertaining some good stories there. They mean a lot to me, but our expert in the room at finding the right problems is Jacqueline here. So I know you've done this for some time. Jacqueline, you've developed a certain set of skills over the years. Um, so could you share with us kind of how you get to the right problem? Because you only have so much time, and we're also in a remote world now, and that could be a challenge. So tell us what you do.
Yeah, no, great stories. Thank you so much. And I love the example that you give, the real life example, because we have all walked into a problem and thought, "Oh, I know how to do this thing really well." So your mind immediately goes to that's how we solve the problem. It's a great example. Another problem that we often run into is your stakeholders may not be aligned, whether they're internal or external. So, like you were saying, we live in a very remote world at the moment. I'm going to show you something virtually. We're going to be looking at a Miro board today, but you can also use this. And I almost think it's better in some ways if you do this in person and align around many pieces of paper on a wall or around a whiteboard. There's a lot of ways that you can do this exercise. But the critical pieces of this exercise here, I have it broken up where I ask people to break out the different goals that they have for the engagement, for the project, whatever you're doing discovery on. And I break it out by area just to get people thinking about it. Or maybe they have multiple priorities, and that will help us really focus in on where we start, what the most important is. You don't need to do this step. You can just have a major backlog where we throw all ideas. There's no wrong answer there. The second piece of it, though, which is more critical, is that you ask people just to move their stickies, their cards, whatever we're working with, to the boxes of do it now, do it next, do it when there's time, or don't do it. Obviously, don't do it is going to be pretty minimal, but by the end of our discussion, where we have all stakeholders align and talk through priorities, you will usually end up with a couple there, or at least don't do it as part of this initial phase. That's usually where we land. If you want to take this to a next step, if you have time, which I typically don't, we can even start to talk about roughed out timing. But the real magic here is that everybody, when you start a project, goes in with their own goals and their own priorities. And getting all those people in the same room to talk it through with each other won't pit you in the middle going from one person to the next, or worse and more damaging for your project, to go from one priority and then reprioritize and then reprioritize, because as we all know, that's just a time killer.
Yep.
Okay, so advantages to using visuals and why I really encourage people to use visuals instead of just talking through in a meeting. As we all know, some of us are stronger talkers than others. Some of us are more extroverted. Some of us really like to talk in front of groups, others completely clam up. So, in order to allow everyone, not just the loudest voice, to be heard, if you have people spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes to start to put their ideas, their priorities on a whiteboard, virtual or otherwise, then that means that every voice can be heard. If people aren't allowed to talk in a meeting, they just disengage. And sometimes those are very smart people and we need to hear their opinions, or they're going to speak up at a different time. And then again, it'll be damaging to our project. Also, we don't want to get caught up in groupthink. One loud talker says the idea and everybody starts to rally around it. Maybe dissenting ideas just shut down because there's already such a groundswell, but that's not necessarily the right idea, or maybe they're not considering everything. Again, if we have all of this on paper that we talk through or virtual paper, it's really helpful. And then, of course, every opinion is considered. And again, just to go back to the idea of if we talk through every opinion, hopefully you have less dissenting ideas creep up 2 weeks into the project or a month in.
Got a little quick little thought on there, some follow-up questions.
Yeah.
You know, in certain, we're kind of talking about discovery or workshopping. And anytime we get that precious time that we get to be with our customers, you know, it's we get an hour, we get 2 hours, or we're on site for a couple of days, and but it's a limited window of time. And so there's a couple kinds of discovery that I've seen. There's probably more than a couple, but a couple basic ones. And one is just your situation. I want to learn more about your situation, your actual, how does your process work? What are Joe sends a spreadsheet with these fields to Mary, who receives it and uses it for this, and that is a example of data being assembled, managed, handed off manually to somebody else to use it for a purpose. That's a situation. Now I understand your situation and a little bit about your architecture for that, process or whatever. And then so that's situational discovery. Then there's kind of what I look at what you're talking about is like that problem, pain, challenge discovery. I want to understand your problems. And one of the things I've seen is, you know, when we're asking the problem, sometimes it's easy to still get shifted back over into situation. Like,
Hmm.
well, we have to send the spreadsheet. What's your problem? Well, I don't like sending the spreadsheet. And well, you know, it's kind of like you have to drill down. Well, what's the problem with that? And hopefully you uncover, well, it's manual. And okay, well, what's the problem with manual? Well, it's slow. And what's the problem with slow? Well, Mary doesn't get the data until a week later, and then it's already stale data, or that financial data is too late, or the month is already closed out. And we actually need that 3 days earlier. And well, why do you need it 3 days earlier? Well, because we're trying to make forecasting decisions off of this data. Well, what happens if the forecasting decisions are bad and you get late date? Well, we may miss our forecast, or there's and so you're trying to get to that impact. And it can be challenging, can't it, to really get to that with a limited amount of time without getting stuck in spreadsheet land or situation land. I don't know if you've developed some tips and tricks to keep people, let's focus on getting to the real problem, not just the situation.
I think you bring up a lot of really good points there. And yes, we have all been through so many discoveries where you try and focus everyone in the room on your high level goal, on the outcome that you want to achieve. You really try very hard not to solution at that point because exactly what you're saying, you start to go down these rabbit holes.
Great point.
But you're bringing up a lot of great points. So future discoveries, when we start to get more into the this is broad strokes. This is what outcome we want. But maybe in a future discovery, a month down the line, where we start to talk to the individual departments, that again will be a problem. And there's a couple tips that I can recommend, but I will say there is no silver bullet here. I often will have use the timer. Again, I'm just using the Miro example. You can use your phone, you can use a lot of different tools that are out there, but make every discussion timed, especially if you foresee this being a problem because you may have strong talkers. And then at the end of that 3 minutes, you can ask the group, do we want to keep going or do we want to stop? Have we talked about this enough? I would also say that sometimes, like you were just talking about the whys, that reminds me of the 5 why game that we often play. It really is, I know it's way over talked about at this point, but it's so valuable. And it really is a great tool, like you were just saying, the problem is not that we give a spreadsheet to this group. If we keep asking whys and talking it through with the stakeholders, especially if you have different stakeholders in the room who are going to give you different perspectives, you're much more likely to get to the real heart of the problem after you ask that fifth why, or maybe keep going, see where the conversation takes you. But yeah, all really good points and definitely challenges that we all work through.
Good stuff. Thanks. All right. Well, we
Absolutely.
tried to keep these punchy, and so in an effort to do that, I hope you guys got some value out of this one. We'll keep going. Valiantus, as you guys know, is #1 Atlassian Platinum Solution Partner globally. We're now global, even into APAC. And some of you guys are familiar with what we can do technically across ITSM, ESM, agile at scale, enterprise agility, or cloud migration and transformation. But we're hoping that across this series, you'll see more about what we can do strategically. Sometimes strategic thinking, like how much value is in this and what are the real problems and what are the outcomes we're going after. Those are tougher things to go after, but our business, we're building to help you with that. And we hope that this series gives you value. So we're going to keep it going. Next slide. If you want to reach out to Jacqueline or myself, here's the little QR code. We'll leave it up for a second. You should be able to scan it with your phone and it'll go to our LinkedIn, and there's our email there as well, that you can reach out to us and ask questions, get in touch, find out more about what we're doing. And if you need help with anything, please do reach out. Thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned because we'll be coming out with these episodes weekly.
Thanks for watching. Talk soon.